Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Uncharted Veterinary Podcast. Today, I am your host, Maria Parita, and we are diving into one of the most pressing challenges in veterinary medicine, child daycare. And I do mean human children, not doggy daycare, but human children. If you've managed or worked alongside moms in this field, you already know the struggle is so real. I mean, I have seen talented, dedicated team members leave the profession, not because they wanted to, but because the cost of daycare meant that working just didn't make financial sense anymore. And I saw that amongst teams, whether it was veterinary assistants or practice managers. And so theoretically speaking, a practice manager should be making enough money to cover daycare, but daycare costs still add up. We have all seen, moms who either have to leave early or come in late because they're dropping their kids off at daycare. And those daycares do not play around. I mean, you're late for just a little bit and they charge you hundreds of dollars. And so this is a female-dominated industry, and yet we rarely talk about how our systems do or don't support working mothers. But today we are talking about it. And so my friend, Jenni George, she is an Uncharted member. She's a CVPM. She joins me for this conversation because she is one of those people who didn't just have the thought, maybe we should just start a daycare for our team. Jenni actually did it. And while I might have started as a joke, she has had it running for a very long time now. And so we get into it. We talk about the logistics. We talk about the safety. We talk about the liability. We talk about the cost and what kind of return on investment this could even potentially have. And it is just such a great conversation. Most importantly, we start to explore some childcare solutions that actually support your team. And so if you're interested in all of this, let's get into this episode.
And now, the Uncharted Podcast.
And we are back. This is the Uncharted Podcast. I am Maria Parita. I am hosting today, and I am very excited because I have Uncharted member Jenni George here with us. Jenni, you are a CVPM. You're a practice manager. You co-own, if I'm not mistaken, with your husband. And tell me a little bit about your clinic, because you guys have multiple doctors now.
We are a 5-doctor mixed animal practice in rural New Hampshire. So we're mixed animal. We see cats, dogs, horses, and livestock. We're also on call 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. Yep.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And we have our new vet starting in a month, and that'll be our 5th doctor. So we're very excited.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank
you.
That
is a very hard thing to do right now
yes,
with hire veterinarians. So I'm sure lots of celebrations. So I was really excited to talk to you, mostly because I think you're doing something really cool and really new in veterinary practice management, something that really touched my heart a little bit as a practice manager myself, because I saw this barrier. But essentially, you have started something like a daycare for your team. So why don't I just give you the floor? Tell us a little bit about what it is and how you got started with it.
Yes. So we do have a daycare, a human daycare, not a dog.
What to specify.
In the veterinary field, you have to, people are like, oh, people bring their puppies. They do, but no. This is a human daycare for our team members, and it is for our team members only. And it really started, as you know, the veterinary industry is a female predominant industry, and females have babies, and that's okay. And my husband and I have worked at practices before where people didn't have kids, or once they had kids, they really were, I don't want to say pushed off to the side, but kind of, it felt that way. And so we started our practice in 2007, right after we had our now oldest, who was getting ready to go to college. And it was one of those moments where we were still working at our old practice. My husband would go to work at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, and sometimes he wouldn't get home until 9 or 10 at night. It was a very busy mixed animal on-call practice. And he was like, this is not what I wanted. Meanwhile, I realized that I am not a stay-at-home mom. I love my kids, but I really love what I do. And I wasn't happy staying at home. So we decided to start our own practice. And even then, in our main goals, our mission, our vision was to have a family-friendly practice. We wanted to have a place where kids were welcome. And our children really grew up in the practice. We have extended cab trucks that you can put a full car seat in so kids can go along. And I remember the first C-section we did, my daughter was strapped to my back as I was, rubbing puppies. And we've just always been that way. And we wanted our team to be able to have that as well. The challenge came when now we're up to 25 team members. We only have one male who works at the practice, and that is my husband. And we watched these kids really go from volunteering to we hired them to they became CVTs. And then, they dated around and then they settle down and they get married and they start. And, the next obvious step is having children. And my team members want to work. They enjoy it here. They like it here. They, really want to continue to use their skills. And I think we started noticing a problem. The first baby that was born that wasn't myself or our associate that's been with us for 17 years because we're the same age. So our first baby that was born, her name was Zoe, and she went to daycare. And what we were running into was my CVT's husband has a job. He's in construction. Sometimes he's down in Massachusetts or a ways away and he can't get there. And so I would actually go and pick Zoe up from daycare and because I'm not a CVT. I never have been. That is not I can do a lot, but that is not, my CVTs have very specific jobs that I can't do. I'm not trained to do. I can be a mom. So I would go and pick up Zoe and she would have her little snack of Cheerios in my car on the way home. And then we'd come back and I would watch her for a couple hours until Kelsey got off and could take her home. And that was fine and dandy. And it was fine for me. I know it. I get a lot of people saying, well, you're crossing boundaries. And I'm going to be very clear that we don't have a lot of boundaries. We wanted it to feel like family. And Zoe still to this day comes up and gives me big hugs and kisses. And, she's my little girl. But we started to realize that this was going to keep happening. And one of my doctors really said, we need a daycare. And at first I was like, you're funny.
It started as a joke.
Right. I'm like, that's so cute.
Okay.
And then I was like, we really are going to need something because my doctors work, we do 10-hour days. My doctors work long hours. My techs work long hours, and so I really wanted to be able to offer something. And I started talking to some of the local daycares in our town. And they were full, I thought, well, maybe we can work something out where I could turn my minivan into a little bus and take the kids or pick them up or something. But they were all full and they didn't have the space for our kids. So I started thinking, what if we can just do it here? And we are in a very unique position in that we own our property, we own our building, our house is connected to it. So we really have the ability to make space, where I know that not a lot of clinics have that. But we did. We built on to the back of our practice. It's connected so that every morning the little kids kind of parade through the clinic and everybody, they give everybody hugs and kisses and they go back to our daycare. And then at the end of the day, the team members pick them up or the husbands come and pick them up and they go home. And it worked out great.
This is so wonderful. I absolutely love so much of this. I think it really touches my heart because I saw a very similar struggle when I was a practice manager. And so before I even became a practice manager, when I was a receptionist or when I was a marketing director, I remember there being a lot of turbulence, specifically around one technician who always had to leave early in order to pick up her daughter, because if she didn't go pick up her daughter by a certain time, the daycare would charge her like $100 per day.
So expensive.
Yeah. And so it was like, but then it was just like, then the other technicians who didn't have kids would be like, well, why does she get to go home early and not the rest of us? And we would just be like, trying to manage that alone. And then when I did become a practice manager, one of the things that I was really passionate about was very similar to you. It's a female-dominated industry. At the very least, we should have paid maternity leave. It was something that I felt very, very strongly about. And I'm somebody who believes in, obviously, equality and equity. So I was like, do we need to be parental leave? And so that was something that I was like, we really need to implement in our practice. We found a way to be able to do that. And then once we had that, like, you could see the relief in so many of the team's faces, just having that alone. And then I remember as those kids got a little bit older while I was a practice manager, the daycare still became a very big struggle where I did have some assistants who left because they were like, it costs me the same amount
Yes.
to have daycare as it does to work. So like I might as well just stay home and my husband becomes the primary breadwinner. And I was just like, I completely understand. And then I had a couple other that were in a similar situation, but they got paid a little bit more. They had good daycare. But, you know, it was still one of those things where I started looking into what can we do that is tax deductible? Because there's also some benefits in that way for you as the clinic. And so anyway, I just love everything that you talked about when it comes to how do we support our team in these ways. And so it's a very creative way, I think, that you found. And so we usually talk in the Headspace about like Headspace and action steps. And I want to keep that going. So from a Headspace perspective, you know, what would you say to a manager who's maybe listening and thinking like, you know, but this isn't my job. Figuring out their daycare for them is not my job. That's something that they should be taking care of themselves. What would you say to a practice manager that's maybe listening to this and thinking that way?
I guess you need to figure out defining your job as a practice manager. My job, in my eyes, is to empower and help my team members to do the absolute, to be the best that they can be, to do the best that they can. If your team members, and I don't care, take away the children aspect of it. If your team members are concerned about finances, security, health insurance, retirement, all of these things that we think of as benefits, but if they're concerned about, okay, I'm living paycheck to paycheck, I can't make my car payment, I can't, afford to buy groceries, these things, they're not going to give 100% at their job, right? And this is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. There's a whole psychological study behind this in that you have to have your basic needs met. Food, shelter, warmth, clothing. You have to have financial security. If we're not able to offer that, then how can we expect our team to give 100%, 110%? In our practice, we do emergency medicine. It's fast paced. You don't know what's going to happen. Right now, we have a bulldog downstairs in our oxygen kennel that we're keeping a very close eye on. We have a blocked cat downstairs. It's all of these things that you have to be on your toes and you have to be paying attention. If you're in the back of your mind thinking, how am I going to make my next mortgage payment? Or how am I going to afford childcare? How am I going to afford diapers for my children? They're not going to give 100%. So for me, it is my job. I'm not saying that it was not my job to go and pick up Zoe from daycare. That was not my job. I will say that was
your personality.
That's me being me.
Yes.
I would never, ever say to a practice manager, yes, you need to, go and pick up a child and become a school bus. No. I'm not saying that is anybody's job. That is me. Yes, that is my personality. 100%. I am that person, And so that part is not your job. But if you can relieve some of the pressure from your team members so that they can give their all at work, why wouldn't you? And it's really hard because our job is so varied from practice to practice, from practice owner to practice owner. How are we viewed? Are we just glorified technicians that take the blame when things go wrong? Do we get to have continuing education every year? Some of us are CVPMs and we've gone to extra schooling and we've done these things. Does that come with increased responsibility and things like that? So I think we need to define what is a practice manager and what do they do? Are they looking at your big global ideas or are they really managing day to day? So by having a very clear job description, I think that is key. But I do think that we really need to start looking at our teams in a holistic way. Everything. I want loyalty. And I don't want loyalty because we're a gang or a cult. I want loyalty because it's good for patient care and it's good for client care. How much difference does it make when your clients come in and they know your team members? It's the same team members they see every time. I have one client who will only allow one team member to trim her dog's toenails. We can all trim toenails, but it doesn't matter. She loves Amber and Amber's the best and Amber's the only one that can do it. Okay, fine. We're going to do that because Amber's been with us for 12 years. So that
Shout out to Amber.
Yeah, well, we do it. Yeah. Amber, you can trim toenails. No.
You're a rock star, Amber. Way to go.
But I mean, I have a CVT, I have a receptionist, and I have a doctor who have all been with us for 17 years, and we opened up 18 years ago. So I have clients who love them, who want to see them. So that continuity of care, both clients and patients, We all know it. You have patients that respond better to certain vibes that your technicians are giving off or vibes that your doctors are giving off. Well, if you're constantly having turnover, you are never going to build that loyalty of clients, the great care with your patients, and that continuity of care. So when I say I want loyalty, it's not selfish. It is because that's what we're here for. And so to build loyalty, I've got to take care of my team. I have to make sure that their needs are being met. You asked how we came up with the daycare. And I said, one of my doctors said, let's build a daycare. So really it came from me listening to my team and really listening after laughing it off, but really listening to what do you need? Our team members need different things. I have team members right now who are like me and they're going through perimenopause. Guess what? I buy them the little fans that cool them off, or, these things that can cool off their bodies and give them time to go see holistic doctors. And, it's all about meeting your team where they're at and meeting their needs.
Yeah, and it sounds like you're very intentional about listening to their their needs, right? And so being there, not just to hear it, but to be an advocate for them. And I think that is exactly what I would say about this. So like anybody that's thinking this isn't my job, I would say your job as a practice manager is always to balance the needs of the practice with the needs of the clients, with the needs of your team, right? And so you need to know what the needs of your team are in order to be able to balance those things. And I will say that it's not my job to give my team everything that they ask for, but it is absolutely my job to be an advocate for what they need, right? And so I will just call out the AHA Please Stay study that just came out with their second part, I think this year. And they basically surveyed a bunch of people in veterinary medicine. A lot of your veterinary technicians, your veterinary assistants, they had said that in order to feel appreciated, they need their basic needs met. And so that'll be pay, that'll be benefits, that'll be all of those things. And I think you also called out something that's super important where we talk a lot about how do we retain our teams? How do we keep them on our team? And so you talk a lot about loyalty, and I think that that's really, really important here because that is one of the results of taking care of the needs of your team for sure. And it's just I love that you started out, why did I do this? I did it because I want to take care of my team, right? But the result of it comes to be loyalty, and that also benefits the practice. And so I will 100% say, not only does the loyalty benefit the practice as in it helps with the clients or the patient care, and it helps with your own retention. I could tell you how much it costs to hire somebody right now, and it's literally thousands of dollars.
And nobody likes to do that.
And yeah, it's so time consuming. So absolutely. So not only is it thousands of dollars, but truly when you're looking to sell your practice, that is something that they're looking at as well, is how long has your team been with your practice? Because they know that the clients are loyal to your team. And so they know that the longer that you've had a team stay on board, the more likely it is that your clients will also stay during any kind of changes in ownership. So I think that all beautifully calls out not only the big why of why you did this, but also the benefits and really taking the time to listen to your team and listening to what their needs are and trying to just get creative and think outside the box. So that is great. Do you want to take a break right here and then we'll get back into some action steps when we come back?
Sure.
All right, let's get back into this. So we talked a lot about this new daycare program that you started, kind of where you went, where you got the idea from, and then also the benefits of having this program. So let's talk a little bit about the nitty gritty, the action steps, because I'm sure a lot of people are wondering, well, hold on a minute. How, right? So let me just ask you first, how much did this cost the practice? Was it something that you absorbed as a benefit, or are you charging a fee to the parents that they still have to pay? And what is the tax benefits? Because I'm sure there's some of those as well. And I'll preface this with, we are in the United States. So I know we have some listeners that are in Canada and the UK. I think we have some even in Mexico and stuff. So laws and regulations, all of those are going to be different. So we at Uncharted always advise to talk to your accountant, talk to your lawyer about these things. But obviously we want to hear from you. And you said in New Hampshire. Yes. And so talk to us a little bit about that. How much did it cost? Was it something that you kind of absorbed as a benefit? Are you charging the fees to parents? And what kind of tax benefits are coming out of this kind of thing?
So I will say, yes, we are in New Hampshire and our state motto is live free or die. So we really, it is very different from other states. But so the building itself was about $200,000. And that was something that we just added on. And my husband and I, our thought is that even if we get to a point where we don't have children anymore in the practice, we don't need a daycare, we can use that space. He really wants an MRI machine, I don't know that that's going to happen.
Dream.
Right. Oh, he has a lot of dreams. But, we could turn it into a rehab facility. We could, that is a space that we can use for something else. So that we really just absorbed. What we ended up doing, I spoke with a friend who runs a daycare, and I really had her help me with this because I said, I already know all the laws with regards to veterinary medicine, controlled substances, radiation safety, OSHA, all of these things. I don't want to know about kids. That just seems really overwhelming for me. And so I enlisted the help of a friend, or you could just basically get a consultant who does daycares instead or something like that. But I talked to her about what do we need space-wise? What do we need if we have, say, 8 children, 9 children? How much space do we need? And she really helped me come up with, in case of a fire drill, how do you get babies out? I didn't know these things. We had to put a ramp in. And she was just so instrumental in helping me think about those things. Whereas we have all of these safety protocols in place for animals, but I don't know for kids. So anyway, that was really helpful to me. We built the practice. The biggest headache that we ran into was when we were trying to become licensed, because meeting the requirements of the licensing of the state of New Hampshire was very difficult. And so we really were closed. We had this building, we had it set up, but we were not running for almost, I want to say about 8 months. We had people that we wanted to hire. Everything was set up. We just couldn't meet the requirements for licensing until somebody finally brought it to our attention that we didn't have to be licensed because the parents are on property. And again, in the state of New Hampshire, I don't know about other states, but in the state of New Hampshire, similar to a church, you could have 25 kids in a Sunday school program with 1 teacher or 2 teachers. And that is legal because the parents are on property. Mm-hmm. So if there's an emergency, they can come and help with their kids, right? So when our babies are in the daycare, their parents are on property. So we are actually not licensed. We are licensed exempt. And it took a while to figure out how to get all that done. But so what basically is happening is I have 4 team members, 1 full-time, 3 part-time, that are my daycare team members. And they watch my other team members' children. So that's how that all works. As far as the pay, because I am a true believer of free has no value. If you give things away for free, they become entitlements. People just expect it. And it doesn't have the value that you think. So each of my parents, for each child, each day, it's $30. That does come out of their paycheck. You talked about tax benefits. I believe it's like $5,000 or $5,500 per family per year. I can't remember it. I'm definitely not an accountant, but my accountant did help me with this. He thought I was crazy, but it worked out well. But that comes directly out of their paycheck. So that helps them with their family taxes, or that portion of it. And then I don't think anybody ever even reaches the threshold of that. Maybe one that has 2 children, she might reach a threshold at the end of the year. But it really has worked out extremely well. That helps cover the cost of the new team members. Maybe not all the way, but again, I do look at it as a benefit. I look at it the same way that, we pay for health insurance. We pay 80% of health insurance. It's the same idea that we are offering this to help retain. It saves you money in the long run with the loyalty.
And I love that you are looking at the space and you were like, this could be this, but we also could use it for all of these other things that we want in the future. So, because I'm a big fan of pilot programs, so we talk about it a lot at Uncharted, we can pilot this program and see if it works. And it's kind of a little bit of what you did. And so far it is working, especially since so many of us do have the dream of having, that rehab, the water therapy, the MRI.
I don't know that that's he has great big plans.
You never know. MRIs might come down in price.
You
never know. Okay. Don't take that as advice.
Right.
I probably won't. All right. So one of the questions, so you brought up safety, which I think is a big point that I wanted to ask you about, because I love children. I'm an auntie, and so I take my role very seriously. I will say whenever I'm watching my nieces and nephews, I get a little bit of anxiety because I'm like, okay, I know exactly what I would do. I would have CPR. I know where it would go, like all of these things. You said you had to do some safety training. You made sure that this building was safety. And you talked about how you were license exempt of this situation. But what does this still mean for a liability perspective for the clinic or you as the owners of the clinic? Did you have to get out any increase in your insurance? Like, did you have to have additional insurance to cover the liability piece? What did that look like?
I did talk to my injury. So yeah, when we did this, we talked to the state, we talked to my accountant, we talked to our lawyers, and we talked to my insurance agent. So yes, we did have to go up a little on liability. Again, our situation is very different in that our house is already here. Our business is already here. We have a barn here. So our insurance covers a lot. But also I pay for our team members to do their annual CPR training. And it's the same way that I would pay. We do OSHA training here. So why wouldn't I pay for safety training for my instructors over there? They're still team members. It's just thinking about it a little differently. I'm very aware, Kenzie, who is my head teacher, well, she doesn't run the whole program, but she is my full-time teacher. She's gone through classes. She's gone to school. She has I believe, is almost finished with her degree in early childhood education. I didn't just hire Joe Schmo from the street. I tried to make sure I had people. These are my babies too, so I want to make sure they are safe.
Of course,
And so we tried to pick people who were trained, who knew what to expect. And like I said, my friend Jennifer, who is actually the director of the program, she has been working in early childhood education for her whole life. It's got to be over 20 years, and so she really knew a lot of what to do, how to do it. We did do the fire suppression system, all of those things. But yeah, as far as the safety, it really is just a matter of training and making sure that the teachers are trained properly, just like you would have your technicians trained properly, your CSRs trained properly. It's the same idea.
I love that so much. I love that you put this intentional effort into it. And so I just want to be clear for those that are now listening, I totally want to do this. You had a whole team. So it wasn't just like, oh, I've got this crazy idea, I'm going to do it on my own. It sounds like you talked to your accountant, you talked to your lawyer, you had your daycare consultant, which was somebody that you knew in the daycare industry. Am I missing somebody? Or you said your insurance people, you talked to your insurance companies for the liability piece. Am I missing anybody or did I cover?
We did have our general contractor and, as far as the building itself was concerned, and we talked to our local fire department. We did have them come out, they check the safety of the whole area. They check the temperature of the water,
Which clinics should be doing for their own clinics on an annual basis anyway.
Right.
So
you shouldn't be going through these things. It's just adding another space to it. And our fire department, they already know what to do for schools. So it was just a matter of they know how to check for our veterinary practice, but they just put that knowledge into here's what we need for this education portion of it.
So let me ask you this. What's one simple, low barrier way that practices can support parents better, even if daycare isn't realistic? So I know some people are looking at this and they're like, I don't have $200,000 to open a whole new building. What is a simple, low barrier way that practices can support parents a little bit better that maybe might not be creating a whole building?
I think talking to your accountant and finding out if there are ways to help pay for childcare. The reality is childcare is so expensive. It's so expensive. And I think that even if you can't, maybe you can work in tandem with a daycare in the area. Say, hey, we're going to help cover the cost. Maybe they pay half and we pay half just to lower the cost for your team members or something like that. Maybe you can work with the daycare in the community that way. Or if, like us, they don't have the space and your team members are already utilizing another service, how can you help them? So I would talk to your accountant and find out what your state laws are and see if you can help pay for a portion of it pre-tax or, something. There has to be ways. Even if it's just, if it's just monetarily, if it's just money, but money helps. Even $5,000 a year, that's a lot of money. So if you can help them with that in a way that benefits you as a tax write-off and also benefits them, why wouldn't you do it? But you have to know the laws, and that's where your CPA comes in very handy to figure out what can we do. There are ways to help them pay off their education if you have CVTs or vets that, owe student debt. Well, there's also a way to help with your daycare or their childcare needs.
I love that so much because I think you are so spot on. So I think what you're talking about is the DCAP, which is basically allows about $5,000
Yes.
of tax-free, basically, so you can deduct that from their gross income. So they don't have to pay taxes on it, and I think that you're right. That's a significant amount of money for any parent. And you're right, because there is also the tax-free, I want to say it's $5,200 or $5,400, something like that, for tuition reimbursement.
It's some random amount, like
Yeah.
5360. Yeah, I don't know where the government comes up with these random numbers, but yes, there is an amount.
And of course, this is being recorded July 2025, so things can change in 6 months to a year, depending on when you're listening to it.
Or tomorrow.
Yeah, or tomorrow. But yeah, I think it's smart to be able to look into what are the benefits, right? And whether they're fringe benefits, or a lot of clinics will offer, the services to the veterinary services also to their team as a fringe benefit. So I think just knowing what is allowed and what's not allowed is a huge first step in that.
You already mentioned one easy way to do it, and that's change the schedule. Accommodate their needs. And I know it can cause some issues within the practice, the kids versus non-kids and things like that. How come the moms never have to open or the moms never have to close? But it is a culture piece in that if you're all in it together and you all say, well, it's either they don't open or we don't have them at all because they can't work. So that is an accommodation that can be made so that your team members can keep working. And before I had kids, I used to work the late shift every time. I loved working at night. I'm not a morning person. So I loved, I took every 1 to close shift that I possibly could so I didn't have to get up in the morning. And now that wasn't feasible once I had kids, but so we help out when we can.
I love that you mentioned that because that is so real. I remember I was very intentional about asking my team, what kind of benefits do you guys want to see? Because it covers the first thing that we talked about in the beginning of the podcast is you need to figure out what the need is. But I remember when I first pitched the idea of having childcare, there was only like 3 parents on my team out of a whole team of 20. And so it was one of those things where I reached out to my team, like, how would you feel if we offered this? Do you feel like you get anything taken away? And they were like, no, I don't have pets and you still offer veterinary services. And so I think being intentional about how you talk about this and realizing that there are benefits that some of us want and need and some of us don't. I've heard of a lot of companies doing benefits a la carte where they have like a certain $10,000 and they're like, you pick which benefits you want. So perhaps you don't need the 50% paid health insurance, but you do want the vision insurance, right? And so you can pick what you want out of those things. And so I think having an open and honest conversation with them regularly about what the benefits are, what kind of benefits they would like to see. Again, your job as a practice manager is to advocate for their needs. And so that is part of it, is finding out what needs they feel they need, but also how would they feel it is fair across the board, right? So that there isn't that little chatter in the background of, oh, why does she get this, but I don't? It's just, well, what would you like? Like, how can we make this fair for everybody, but at the same time realistic?
You still will have that chatter. I mean, let's be real. Humans are humans, and we still are going to be like, I mean, we just can't help ourselves. But yes, I think the other thing is being adaptable and knowing that those needs change. Like I said, Kayla, she's my team member, she'll be 17 years next month. We hired her when she was 18. She was such a baby. But her needs have definitely changed from when she was volunteering and living at home with her family to now a wife, a mom, a homeowner. It's a totally different thing. So I think you have to be very adaptable. If you have loyalty and these people are with you for a very long period of time, their needs are going to change. I have people now who have to take time off to take care of their parents.
Oh, yeah. That's also, I've been there too. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not going to say no, oh, your mom just fell and she's in a rehab facility. No, you can't go visit. No, I'm not going to say that. I think what it always comes down to is looking at your team as human beings and understanding is that we all as human beings have needs that need to be met. And I think that it's easy to fall in if you've been in this industry for a long time. I started in the 90s. It's hard not to be like, well, I had to go through that.
Yeah.
But that doesn't make it right. I had instruments through at my head. I don't want my team members to work in a toxic environment like that. I want them to feel loved and needed and cared for. And they do. I will say that that's one thing that they all know, that I've got their back no matter what it is.
I just love that you said that. I can't agree more with that. I wholeheartedly agree with. There's definitely a lot of the mentality of, oh, well, we didn't have this when I was in school, or we didn't have this when I was. And I'm always like, you know what? It is our job to create a better space for the next generation. I pride myself in trying to be the adult that I didn't have as a child.
Yes.
And very much similarly, as a manager, I try to be the manager that I did not have as a young adult, right? And so I am right there with you. I love that you're doing this as a benefit. That's why I wanted to have you on the podcast and just talk about it, because I think it's really cool. I really hope that it inspires other people. And I just hope that, they continues the chatter and the communication in the Uncharted community. It's one of the reasons why I love Uncharted, is I feel like there is a bunch of innovative, creative minds in there that are just trying new things all the time. And so I love that you were able to share something that you're trying with your clinic and that it's been so successful. Where can people find you? Where can they hear more about you, about what you're doing? If they have questions, where can they reach out to?
So I am on the Uncharted community, and I actually am leading a team empowerment workshop on August 13th.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's coming up. Yes. Oh, we're going to have to air this before that.
Get on that. No, we were a little late getting in here, but yeah, it's on August 13th from 12 to 1:30, so Eastern Standard Time. So that's a great place. And I really want it to be, yes, we're going to talk about how to implement different things and how to meet needs basically and then move up. But also I would love to hear what people are doing, and so that we can have a communication and get new ideas. I get so jazzed about that. I'm also speaking at VMX this year, or in 2026. I shouldn't say this year. Yeah, but I'm speaking at VMX with another Uncharted member, Dr. Phil Richmond.
We love Dr. Phil Richmond.
He's
He's amazing.
Yeah. So he and I are doing a talk together. So that'll be, the energy level is going to be like
That's
high on that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's putting that on my calendar for sure.
He and I trying to keep us, I think, focused is going to be the real difficult, but we'll get through it. We'll get through it. And then also I am a co-host on Unfiltered Veterinary Discussions, which is a podcast that has me. I'm on it. Phil is on it. Dr. Peter Weinstein is on it. We have a lot of David McCormick, who does a lot of, evaluates practices. Kelly Baltzell, she does marketing. So you get a lot of really different ideas within the veterinary space. So that's a good one to, if you're a podcast listener, which I'm assuming if you're listening to this,
if you're listening to this, you probably
Unfiltered Vet Discussions is another good way. So, yeah.
I love it. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. Thank you for being an awesome Uncharted member, making waves, as we say. And so I just had a lovely time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Me too. Thank you. This was quite the honor. I'm very excited about it.
That's it. That's what we've got for y'all. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you to Jenni for joining me for this session. If you've ever felt the weight of juggling childcare and clinic life, or watched your teammates carry the load, we see you. And we'd love to hear from you. Drop us a message, tell us what your clinic is doing to support parents, or maybe what you wish they were doing. And if you haven't checked out in the Uncharted community yet, this is your sign. It's where conversations like this keep going and where support doesn't stop when the episode ends. Thank you all again so much for being here, and I'll catch you next time.